The wind howled like something alive. Elias had heard storms his entire life, blizzards that could strip flesh from bone, winds that screamed through the mountains like dying beasts, but this sounded different. It sounded like a warning. He stopped walking. The crunch of snow beneath his boots faded into silence, swallowed by the endless white stretching in every direction. No birds. No tracks. No movement. Just the storm, and that low, unnatural hum threading through it. Elias slowly turned his head. Yeah. I hear it too, he muttered to no one. Out here, talking to yourself wasn't madness. It was survival. Silence could break a man faster than the cold. The hum came again, faint, vibrating through the air rather than echoing across it. That alone made Elias uneasy. Sound should travel. It should bounce, carry, fade. This didn't. This stayed. His gloved hand tightened around the grip of his old rifle. He wasn't as fast as he used to be. His knees reminded him of that every morning, his back every night. Retirement had been forced on him 5 winters ago, but something about this place never let him go. Or maybe he never let it go. Elias adjusted the scarf around his neck and took a careful step toward the source of the sound. Just ice, he said under his breath. Always just ice. But even as he said it, he didn't believe it. The ground sloped downward ahead, forming a shallow basin carved by centuries of wind. Snow drifted along its edges, but the center was wrong. Elias froze at the ridge. At first glance, it looked like a glacier shard, jagged, massive, buried deep in the earth. But the longer he stared, the more his instincts twisted. It was too smooth in places. Too curved. And faintly, impossibly, it pulsed. Elias exhaled slowly, his breath fogging the inside of his mask. No, he whispered. The hum grew stronger. Not louder, stronger. It pressed against his chest, against his bones, like standing too close to a generator. A vibration you didn't hear so much as feel. He stepped down into the basin. Each movement felt heavier, slower, like the air itself resisted him. His boots sank deep into the snow, but beneath that, the ground felt solid. Too solid. Frozen, but not natural. All right, Elias muttered, forcing calm into his voice. Seen stranger things. That was a lie. He had never seen anything like this. The ice formation towered over him as he approached, at least 3 times his height, maybe more if most of it lay buried. Its surface shimmered faintly blue beneath the storm's gray light, smooth in some places, jagged in others, like it had grown rather than formed. And then he saw it. Elias stopped dead. His breath caught in his throat. Inside the ice, there was a shape. At first, his mind refused to understand it. Tried to twist it into something familiar, rock, shadow, distortion. But the longer he stared, the clearer it became. A curve like a rib. A long, arching structure that could only be a neck. And something folded, massive, laid. A wing. Elias stumbled back a step. No, that's not. The hum pulsed again. Stronger. His heart began to pound, not from fear, not yet, but from something deeper. Instinct. The same instinct that had kept him alive in places where younger, stronger men hadn't made it out. Leave. Every nerve in his body screamed it. This isn't yours. Walk away. But Elias didn't move. Instead, he took another step forward. Just ice, he repeated, though his voice had gone quieter now. Less certain. Just, something trapped in ice. His gloved hand slowly reached out. The wind dropped. Not gradually. Instantly. One moment it roared, the next. Nothing. Silence crashed over the basin so suddenly it made his ears ring. Elias froze. Then, very carefully, his fingers touched the surface. The cold bit through his glove immediately, but that wasn't what made him jerk in shock. It was the warmth beneath it. Faint. Impossible. But real. Elias pressed his hand harder against the ice, eyes narrowing. That's not possible. The hum surged. And for a brief, horrifying second, it matched his heartbeat. Thump. 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 Elias yanked his hand back like he'd been burned. No, he said, louder now, shaking his head. No, I'm done. I'm not. A sharp cracking sound cut him off. Elias spun around, rifle raised, scanning the empty white horizon. Nothing. No movement. No threat. Just silence. Then. Crack. This time, it came from behind him. Slowly, Elias turned back toward the ice. A thin fracture had appeared across its surface. He stared at it, breath shallow. I didn't do that, he whispered. The crack spread. Not quickly. Not violently. But steadily, deliberately, like something inside was pushing outward. The shape within the ice shifted. Barely. But enough. Enough for Elias to see it. A massive, clawed limb, twitching. His grip tightened on the rifle. Every instinct screamed at him to run. To leave. To forget he'd ever seen this place. But his feet wouldn't move. Because deep down, he already knew. This wasn't just ice. And whatever was trapped inside it was waking up. Elias didn't breathe. He couldn't. The world had narrowed to a single, thin fracture in the ice, and the impossible thing moving behind it. Crack. The sound came again, softer this time, but heavier, like a bone shifting under pressure. Elias tightened his grip on the rifle, the old metal creaking faintly in protest. His finger hovered near the trigger, though he knew, deep down, it wouldn't matter. Whatever was inside that ice, a bullet wouldn't stop it. Back away, he muttered to himself, forcing his boots to move. One step. Then another. Slow. Careful. Controlled. The fracture spread further, branching out like veins across the icy surface. Pale blue light flickered beneath, pulsing in time with that same unnatural rhythm. Thump. Elias felt it again. Not in the air. In his chest. Damn it, he whispered. The shape inside shifted once more, clearer now. The long curve of the neck straightened slightly, and something along its side flexed outward. A wing. There was no denying it anymore. This wasn't debris. This wasn't some frozen carcass. This was a creature. A massive one. And it was alive. Crack. The sound exploded through the basin, louder than before. A jagged line split across the center of the ice, shedding shards that clattered onto the frozen ground. Elias flinched, raising the rifle fully now. Don't, he said instinctively, as if the thing could hear him. Just, don't. The wind still hadn't returned. That was the worst part. Storms didn't just stop. Not out here. Not like this. It was as if the world itself was holding its breath. The glow inside the ice brightened, shifting from pale blue to something deeper, richer. A color Elias had never seen before, like fire seen through deep ocean water. The creature's head, if that's what it was, tilted. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. Elias felt his pulse spike. It sees me, he said under his breath. And somehow, that felt true. Even through layers of ancient ice, even half-frozen, it knew he was there. Another crack split the surface. Then another. The fractures began to overlap now, forming a web across the entire structure. Small chunks broke free, falling away to reveal glimpses of something beneath, dark, scaled, impossibly smooth. Elias took another step back. Then stopped. His boot had hit something solid beneath the snow. He glanced down briefly. Ice. Not loose snow like before, but a flat, frozen surface. He looked back up, and his stomach dropped. The formation wasn't just a single block. It spread outward beneath him. Buried. Extending far beyond what he could see. Not a shard, he murmured. A prison. Thump. The vibration slammed through him this time, strong enough to make his teeth clench. The creature inside moved again, more violently now. Its body twisted, straining against the frozen shell. One massive limb pushed forward, pressing hard against the weakening barrier. The ice bulged outward. Elias stumbled back, nearly losing his footing. Easy, easy, he said, voice shaking despite himself. Why was he talking to it? Why wasn't he running? Because he couldn't look away. Because something deep inside him, something older than fear, kept him rooted in place. The limb inside the ice flexed again. Claws. Long curved. Each one the size of a dagger. They pressed against the inner surface. And for a brief second, everything went still. The hum stopped. The light dimmed. The cracks froze in place. Elias frowned, confusion cutting through the tension. What? Then. The eye opened. It snapped into view through the fractured ice, glowing with that same impossible color. Vast. Luminous. Focused. Locked directly onto him. Elias froze. The rifle lowered an inch, then another. He couldn't move. Couldn't think. All he could do was stare. Because that eye. It wasn't wild. It wasn't feral. It wasn't even angry. It was aware. Ancient. And unmistakably, intelligent. A strange pressure filled Elias's head, like something brushing against his thoughts. Not pain. Not quite. More like presence. He swallowed hard. Understand me? He asked, barely above a whisper. The eye didn't blink. But the light within it flickered, just once. The hum returned. Stronger than ever. The cracks surged across the ice in a sudden wave. Crack. A massive section shattered outward. Elias threw his arm up as shards blasted past him, slicing through the air and embedding into the snow behind. The creature's limb burst partially free, dark scales glistening, steam rising where the frozen shell gave way. It moved. Not wildly. Not violently. Slowly. Deliberately. As if testing the world. Elias lowered his arm, breath ragged. Okay, he said hoarsely. Okay, this is bad. This is very bad. But even as he said it, the claw didn't strike. Didn't lash out. It simply rested against the broken edge of the ice. Weak. Trembling. The great eye remained fixed on him. And in that gaze, Elias felt something he never expected. Not hunger. Not rage. Not even curiosity. It was something far more dangerous. Trust. Elias took a slow, unsteady step forward before he could stop himself. What are you? He whispered. The creature didn't answer. But the ice cracked again. And this time, it wasn't breaking on its own. It was waiting. Waiting. For him. Elias stared at the shattered ice, then at the creature's exposed limb. Then back at its eye. Waiting. That was the part that made no sense. Whatever this thing was, whatever impossible force had kept it alive inside a frozen prison, it wasn't acting like a predator. It wasn't attacking. It wasn't even trying to break free anymore. It had stopped. And it was waiting, for him. That's not how this goes, Elias muttered, shaking his head. You don't wait for me. I walk away. That's the deal. The creature didn't move. Didn't blink. But the faint glow in its eye pulsed once, soft, steady, almost like a breath. Elias swallowed. His instincts were still screaming at him to leave. Every lesson, every year spent surviving the wild, told him the same thing. If you don't understand it, don't touch it. But something else pushed back. Something quieter. Stronger. He exhaled slowly and lowered the rifle. Yeah. I know, he murmured to himself. This is how people die. Still, he stepped forward. The ice groaned under his boots now, not snow anymore, but a smooth, glass-like surface stretching across the basin. Each step echoed faintly, as if the ground itself were hollow. The creature's claw remained still as Elias approached. Up close, it was even larger than he'd thought. Each scale was layered like armor, dark and metallic, faintly reflecting that strange inner light. Thin lines ran between them, glowing softly, like veins carrying energy instead of blood. Steam curled off its surface where the ice had broken, the heat of it cutting through the brutal cold. Elias hesitated only a second. Then he reached out again. Don't bite, he muttered dryly. His gloved hand touched the exposed scale. Warm. Not just warm, alive. The hum surged instantly, vibrating through his palm, up his arm, and deep into his chest. Elias gasped, nearly pulling back. Then stopped. Because this time, it didn't feel wrong. It felt steady. Like a heartbeat finding rhythm. The creature's eye shifted slightly, watching him closer now. The glow intensified, not blinding, but focused. Aware. Elias frowned. Yeah, you feel that too, don't you? The claw twitched under his hand. Not violently. Not threateningly. Just enough to make his breath hitch. Easy, easy, he said softly. The massive limb relaxed again. A low sound followed, not a roar, not a growl. Something deeper. A resonance. It echoed through the basin, not loud, but powerful enough to vibrate the air. Elias felt it more than heard it, like distant thunder rolling through the ground beneath him. Okay, he whispered. Okay, you're definitely real. Another crack split the ice behind the limb. Elias turned his head sharply. The fractures were spreading faster now, crawling across the creature's body in long, jagged lines. The frozen prison was weakening. Breaking. Yeah, I see it, Elias said. You're getting out whether I help or not. The eye flickered again. The hum pulsed. Stronger this time. Elias winced as a sudden pressure pressed against his mind, clearer now, sharper than before. Not words. But something close. A feeling. Cold. Darkness. Time. And then. Pain. Elias staggered slightly, grabbing his head. All right, he rasped. I get it. The pressure eased immediately. He lowered his hand slowly, breathing hard. You've been in there a long time. The creature didn't move. But something in its gaze shifted. Not pleading. Not demanding. Just present. Elias looked at the spreading cracks again. Then at his rifle. Then back at the creature. "This is a terrible idea," he said. He slung the rifle over his shoulder. "Absolutely terrible." The creature watched him. Elias stepped to the side of the ice formation, scanning for weak points. The fractures had already done most of the work, deep lines running along what looked like joints in the creature's body. "If you come out swinging," he muttered, "I'm going to be very disappointed." He raised his boot and slammed it hard into one of the cracks. Nothing. Right. Of course. He stepped back, then drove his heel down again, harder this time. The ice splintered slightly, a chunk breaking loose and sliding down. A faint surge of light pulsed from within. "Okay, that's something." Elias grabbed a jagged shard from the ground, thick, sharp, heavy, and drove it into the fracture like a wedge. "Let's see if you're as fragile as you look," he grunted. He pushed. The crack widened. A deep, resonating sound rolled through the creature, stronger now, almost like a breath drawn for the first time in centuries. Yeah, you feel that, don't you?" Elias said, a faint grin tugging at his lips despite everything. "Come on then." He shoved harder. The ice split further. Then suddenly, crash. The entire section gave way. Elias stumbled back as a massive slab broke free, slamming into the frozen ground with a thunderous impact. A burst of steam and glowing vapor erupted outward, forcing him to shield his face. The creature moved. Fully. Its limb tore free from the remaining ice, flexing outward with slow, heavy motion. The ground trembled beneath the weight of it. More cracks spread instantly. The rest of the prison began to collapse. Elias backed away quickly now, heart hammering. "All right, this is happening, this is actually happening." Another section shattered. Then another. The creature's massive body shifted within the collapsing ice, wings unfolding slightly as the frozen shell gave way piece by piece. The basin filled with sound, cracking, grinding, echoing like the earth itself was splitting open. "Easy." Elias shouted over the noise. "Take it easy." As if it could. With one final, explosive fracture. The ice broke. Completely. A shockwave of frozen shards blasted outward as the creature surged free, its full form emerging at last, vast, towering, and otherworldly. Elias threw himself back, landing hard in the snow as the last remnants of ice collapsed around it. Silence followed. Heavy. Absolute. Slowly, Elias pushed himself up onto his elbows. And looked. The creature stood before him. Unfrozen. Unbound. Its wings partially spread, its long neck rising as steam curled from its body into the frozen air. For a moment, it didn't move. Then, its head lowered. Slowly. Deliberately. Until that glowing eye was level with him once more. Elias didn't raise his rifle. Didn't run. He just stared. "Yeah," he said quietly, breath visible in the cold air. "Now what?" The creature exhaled, a deep, rumbling breath that sent a wave of warmth rolling over him. And for the first time since it awakened, it stepped forward. Elias didn't move. The creature's step shook the frozen basin, a deep, heavy thud that echoed out into the endless white. Snow drifted from the surrounding ridges as if the land itself reacted to its presence. Still, it didn't attack. Its massive head lowered further, stopping just a few feet from him. Heat rolled off its body in slow waves, melting the snow around its claws into thin streams that hissed against the ice. Elias pushed himself fully upright, though every instinct told him not to stand taller than something that could crush him without effort. "All right," he muttered, brushing snow off his coat. "You're out. I'm alive. That's a good start." The creature exhaled again, slower this time. The air shimmered. Elias narrowed his eyes. "That's not just heat." The glow beneath its scales pulsed faintly, traveling in thin lines along its body like flowing energy. It gathered near its throat, then dimmed again, as if something inside it was stabilizing. Or recovering. "You're hurt," Elias said quietly. The creature's eye flickered. That same strange pressure brushed against his mind again, but clearer now. Less chaotic. More directed. Elias stiffened. Images flashed, not sharp, not complete, but enough. Darkness. Cold. Endless time. And something else. Chains. Not physical ones. Something deeper. Something that had held it there. Elias sucked in a breath. "Yeah. I figured as much." The pressure faded. The creature shifted its weight slightly, one wing flexing weakly before settling again. Up close, Elias could see the damage, fractured scales, dull patches where that inner glow flickered unevenly. "You're not just hurt," he murmured. "You barely made it." He hesitated. Then slowly, carefully, he stepped closer. "Easy," he said softly. The creature didn't pull back. Didn't react at all, except to watch him. That was enough. Elias reached out once more, placing his hand against its neck this time. The surface was warmer here, almost like touching sun-heated metal. The glow beneath its scales pulsed in response, steadying, smoothing out. The hum returned. But now, it wasn't overwhelming. It was synchronized. Elias frowned. "You feel that?" His chest tightened slightly, not painfully, but noticeably. His heartbeat shifted, slowing, aligning with the rhythm beneath his hand. Thump. Pause. Thump. The creature exhaled softly. And for a brief moment, Elias felt something that didn't belong to him. Relief. He jerked his hand back, eyes widening. "Okay, that's new." The creature tilted its head slightly, studying him. Not confused. Not aggressive. Curious. Elias let out a slow breath. "You're not from here," he said. "That much is obvious." The creature made a low, resonant sound, quieter than before, almost conversational. Elias huffed a dry laugh. "Yeah. Didn't think you'd argue that." The wind returned suddenly. Not violently, but enough to remind them both where they were. Snow swept lightly across the basin again, though it no longer touched the creature directly. The heat radiating from it carved a clear space in the storm, like an invisible barrier pushing the cold away. Elias glanced toward the ridge. His expression shifted. Damn it. The basin wouldn't stay hidden for long now. That explosion of ice, the tremors, someone would have felt it. Outposts, satellites, maybe even patrol drones. "And if they saw this?" "They'll come for you," Elias said quietly. The creature's gaze sharpened slightly. "You don't know them," he continued. "But I do." His jaw tightened. "And they don't ask questions first." A faint pulse of energy ran through the creature's body again, stronger this time. Its wings shifted, spreading a little wider as it tested them. Still weak. Still unstable. But not helpless. "Yeah, you could fight," Elias admitted. "Maybe even win." He shook his head. "But you won't stop what comes after." The creature went still. The air between them tightened again, that invisible connection brushing against his mind. This time, it wasn't showing him anything. It was waiting. Elias stared at it for a long moment. Then sighed. "Of course you're waiting." He ran a hand through his graying hair, pacing a few steps before stopping again. "I should leave," he said. "Right now. Walk away, report this, let someone else deal with it." He looked back at the creature. It hadn't moved. Hadn't taken its eyes off him. Trust. That same impossible feeling from before. Elias exhaled sharply. "Yeah, that's the problem." He stepped back toward it. "If I walk away," he said, "you're dead." The creature didn't react outwardly. But the glow beneath its scales pulsed once, steady and calm. Elias nodded slowly. "Thought so." He glanced at the horizon again. Then back at the creature. "All right," he said. "Then we move." The creature tilted its head. "You can't stay here," Elias continued. "Too exposed. Too obvious." He pointed toward the distant mountain range barely visible through the storm. "There's caves out there. Old ones. Deep enough to hide you, at least for now." The creature followed his gesture, its gaze lingering in that direction. Then it looked back at him. Elias raised an eyebrow. "What, you want directions?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then the creature took a step. Not toward the mountains. Toward him. Elias blinked. No, don't start that," he said, holding up a hand. "I'm not leading you by the nose." The creature stopped. Lowered its head slightly. And waited. Elias stared at it. Then let out a tired laugh. "You've got to be kidding me." Another step. Closer. Elias shook his head. "This is a terrible idea," he muttered again. But he turned toward the ridge anyway. "Fine. But if you step on me, I'm haunting you." He started walking. There was a pause behind him. Then, thud. The creature followed. Elias didn't look back. But he could feel it. Each step. Each pulse of that strange, shared rhythm. The storm thickened as they climbed out of the basin, wind rising once more to swallow their tracks. Man and monster. Hunter and unknown. Walking side by side into the white. And neither of them realized. They were already being watched. The first shot echoed through the storm like a crack of thunder. Elias dropped instantly. Down, he shouted, though he wasn't sure why, whether the creature would understand or not. A second shot tore through the air, striking the ice where he'd been standing a heartbeat earlier. Snow exploded upward in a spray of white. Damn it, they are fast, Elias muttered, crawling behind a jagged ridge of frozen rock. Behind him. Thud. The creature shifted, its massive form lowering instinctively, wings tightening against its body. A low, vibrating growl rolled from its chest, not loud, but dangerous. Don't, Elias snapped, glancing back. Not yet. Another shot rang out. Closer this time. Too close. Elias risked a quick look over the ridge. Figures. 3 of them, maybe 4, dark silhouettes cutting through the whiteout with practiced precision. Their movements were sharp, coordinated. Not scavengers. Not locals. Hunters, Elias breathed. And not the kind that tracked animals. These wore reinforced suits, their outlines bulkier than standard patrol gear. Visors glinted faintly through the storm, and each carried long-range rifles built for power, not precision. They weren't here to study. They were here to kill, or capture. Of course, Elias muttered bitterly. Of course they send you. A beam of red light suddenly cut through the storm, sweeping across the basin behind them, scanning. Tracking. One of the figures raised a hand. They'd found them. Move, Elias said sharply, turning back to the creature. Now. The creature didn't hesitate this time. It rose. Fully. Its wings spread slightly despite the strain, the glowing lines along its body flaring brighter as energy surged beneath its scales. The ground trembled. Easy. Elias warned. You're still weak. A shot hit. Not Elias. The creature. The impact rang out like metal struck by a hammer, sending a burst of light rippling across its body. It recoiled slightly, a deep, resonant roar tearing from its throat, this time louder, raw with pain. Elias flinched. All right, scratch that, we don't have time. Another shot fired. Then another. The hunters advanced, tightening their formation. They are testing you, Elias said, jaw clenched. Seeing what you can take. The creature's glow intensified, flickering unevenly now. Its claws dug into the ice, leaving deep cracks beneath its weight. Anger. That much was clear. Elias stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of it. Hey, he barked. Focus. The massive eye snapped down to him. Not like this, Elias said firmly. You lose control now, you're dead. Understand? For a second. Nothing. Then the hum shifted. Aligned. The creature steadied. Elias nodded once. Good. Now listen. Another scan beam swept across them, closer. Those aren't idiots out there, he continued. They've seen things like you before. Maybe not exactly you, but enough to know how to bring you down. A third shot struck the ground near Elias's feet. He didn't flinch. They'll keep their distance. Wear you down. Hit you where you're weak. The creature exhaled sharply, heat rippling through the storm. Elias glanced toward the mountains. Then back at the advancing figures. Which means we don't fight them here. The creature's gaze sharpened. Elias pointed toward the ridge. We run. Another shot hit, this time grazing the creature's wing. It flinched, a low snarl vibrating through the air. Elias raised his voice. Run now, or you don't run at all. For a split second, everything hung in balance. Then, the creature moved. Not toward the hunters. Toward the ridge. Elias turned and sprinted. Pain flared in his knees instantly, his breath tearing in the freezing air, but he didn't slow down. Behind him. Thud. 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 The creature followed, each step shaking the ground as it pushed forward despite its injuries. Go. Go. Elias shouted. The ridge loomed ahead. Another volley of shots rang out, sharper now, more aggressive. They're closing. Elias yelled. A beam locked onto them, steady, unshaking. Tracking confirmed. Damn it. A shot fired. And this one hit hard. The creature staggered mid-step, a burst of light flashing violently across its side. Its roar tore through the storm, louder than before, furious, pained. Elias skidded to a stop. Turned. Hey, he shouted. The creature faltered, its movement slowing. The hunters advanced. Closer now. Too close. Elias made his choice. "Come on," he yelled, running back toward it. He grabbed onto one of the jagged ridges along its side, pulling himself up with a grunt. "Move," he snapped. "I'm not leaving you here." The creature's eye locked onto him. For a brief second. That same connection surged. Stronger than ever. Elias felt it clearly this time. Not images. Not fragments. A question. Stay, or go? Elias bared his teeth. "Too late for that," he said. "We're in this together now." Another shot rang out. Closer. Deadly. Elias slammed his hand against its scales. "FLY," he roared. The creature hesitated. Then unleashed a deafening roar that shattered the storm itself. Its wings spread wide, massive, torn, but still powerful. Energy surged along its body, the glowing lines flaring brighter than ever before. And with a single, thunderous motion, it leapt. The ground exploded beneath them as it launched forward, wings slamming down against the air with a force that sent shockwaves rippling across the snow. Elias held on for dear life. "That's it," he shouted. "Don't stop." Another blast of gunfire followed, but this time, it missed. The distance widened instantly. The creature climbed, unsteady at first, then stronger, its movements gaining rhythm as it pushed through the storm. Below them, the hunters stopped. Small now. Distant. Watching. Elias glanced back once, breathing hard. "They won't give up," he muttered. "Not after this." The creature let out a low, steady sound, different now. Not pain. Resolve. Elias looked ahead. The mountains loomed closer through the storm, dark shapes cutting through the white. "Yeah," he said quietly. "We've got problems." He tightened his grip as the wind howled past them. "But we've also got a head start." The creature flew on. And as Elias sat there, high above the frozen world, clinging to something that shouldn't exist, he realized something that settled deep in his chest. He wasn't going back. Not to the outposts. Not to the quiet, empty life he'd left behind. Whatever this thing was, wherever it came from, it had chosen him. And whether he liked it or not, his life had just changed forever.